There is a strange loneliness that only exists after midnight. A silence that feels heavier than normal silence. A version of the world that most people never truly experience. The streets become empty. The noise disappears. The distractions fade. And suddenly, you are left alone with your own mind. For some people, this moment feels peaceful. But for millions of others, night becomes a psychological battlefield. The body is exhausted. The eyes burn. But the mind refuses to stop. Thought after thought. Memory after memory. Fear after fear. The clock moves slowly through the darkness, while consciousness remains painfully awake. This is insomnia. Not simply the inability to sleep, but often the inability to escape awareness itself. And perhaps nowhere in human history has insomnia become more common than in modern society. Tonight, we explore the philosophy of sleeplessness, the psychological weight of overthinking, the relationship between insomnia and social media, and why the modern world seems designed to keep the human mind permanently restless. Part 1: The World That Never Sleeps. Human beings were not designed for constant stimulation. For most of history, night meant darkness, silence, stillness. The human mind naturally slowed down with the environment around it. But modern civilization changed everything. Today, the world never truly sleeps. Cities glow endlessly. Phones vibrate through the night. Notifications interrupt silence. Social media feeds continue infinitely. The brain no longer experiences real darkness, real quiet, real psychological rest. Instead, modern humans remain mentally connected every second of the day. And slowly, the nervous system becomes overwhelmed. People spend entire days absorbing information, stress, comparison, anxiety, and stimulation. Then at night, they expect the mind to suddenly become peaceful. But consciousness does not work like a machine. The mind carries the entire emotional weight of the day into the darkness. And when external distractions finally disappear, internal noise becomes louder. Part 2: Insomnia and Consciousness. Insomnia is deeply connected to awareness. Many people who suffer from chronic sleeplessness describe the same experience. Their body feels tired, but their mind feels trapped in endless movement. Thoughts repeat endlessly. Questions expand. Small worries become enormous during the night. Why? Because nighttime removes distraction. During the day, humans can escape themselves through work, entertainment, conversations, productivity, and noise. But at 3 a.m., there is nowhere to hide. And perhaps this is why insomnia feels so existential. The mind confronts itself directly. Many philosophers understood this. Emil Cioran suffered from severe insomnia for much of his life. He described sleepless nights almost like psychological torture. For Cioran, insomnia intensified consciousness to unbearable levels. Time slowed down. Existence itself felt exposed. He once suggested that people who truly experience insomnia begin understanding the darker side of existence. Because insomnia strips away illusion. During sleepless nights, humans often confront truths they avoid during the day. Loneliness, mortality, regret, emptiness, uncertainty. And perhaps this is why insomnia can feel emotionally terrifying. Not because darkness itself is frightening, but because silence reveals what distraction normally hides. Part 3: The Relationship Between Social Media and Insomnia. Modern technology transformed insomnia dramatically. Especially social media. Social media platforms are designed around one objective: keeping human attention active. Infinite scrolling. Notifications. Short videos. Constant novelty. Every interaction triggers small dopamine responses inside the brain. And over time, the mind becomes addicted to stimulation. Silence starts feeling uncomfortable. Stillness feels unnatural. People no longer know how to simply exist without input. This becomes especially dangerous at night. A person feels emotionally restless. Opens their phone for just a few minutes. And suddenly 2 hours disappear. The brain remains hyperactive. Emotionally stimulated. Psychologically awake. And perhaps the saddest part is that many people use social media at night trying to escape anxiety, while simultaneously increasing it. Comparison increases insecurity. Endless information increases mental fatigue. Negative news increases stress. Artificial perfection increases self-doubt. And meanwhile, the mind never fully rests. The phone becomes both distraction and prison. Part 4: The biology of a restless mind. Insomnia is psychological, but also biological. Human sleep depends heavily on melatonin, a hormone that helps regulate the body's natural sleep cycle. Darkness naturally signals the brain to prepare for rest. But screens interrupt this process. Phones, computers, tablets. Artificial light suppresses melatonin production. The brain receives mixed signals. Physically tired, but neurologically alert. And because modern humans stare at glowing screens late into the night, sleep cycles become increasingly damaged. But biology alone does not explain modern insomnia. Because many people finally put the phone away, yet still cannot sleep. Why? Because the real problem often begins internally. The modern nervous system is overloaded. People carry economic stress, emotional suppression, loneliness, fear of the future, social comparison, and existential anxiety. The body lies in bed. But psychologically, the person is still fighting reality. Perhaps insomnia is not simply failure to sleep. Perhaps it is the mind refusing to surrender. Part 5: Productivity Culture and the Death of Rest. Modern society treats rest strangely. People are constantly encouraged to optimize themselves. Work harder. Achieve more. Stay productive. Always improve. Even relaxation becomes performance. People try to optimize sleep, meditation, exercise, hobbies, and emotions. And because of this, many humans no longer know how to genuinely rest. Rest becomes guilt. Stillness feels unproductive. Silence feels uncomfortable. The nervous system remains permanently active. This creates a civilization filled with exhausted people who cannot relax even when physically safe. And perhaps this is why insomnia feels increasingly common in modern culture. Humans are biologically tired, but psychologically overstimulated. Their bodies want peace, but their minds remain trapped in survival mode. Constantly preparing. Constantly thinking. Constantly anticipating. And eventually, the night becomes another battlefield. Part 6: Insomnia and Loneliness. There is also something deeply lonely about being awake while the world sleeps. At night, human emotions intensify. Loneliness feels larger. Fear feels heavier. Thoughts become louder. And many people secretly experience emotional isolation during sleepless nights. Social media worsens this paradox. People appear constantly connected online, yet emotionally disconnected internally. A person can spend hours interacting digitally, while still feeling profoundly alone. And during insomnia, this emotional emptiness becomes difficult to ignore. The night magnifies internal reality. Perhaps this is why late-night overthinking feels so intense. The human mind finally confronts itself without distraction. And many people realize something painful. They do not know how to be alone with their own consciousness. Part 7. Why overthinkers struggle with sleep. Overthinking and insomnia are deeply connected. Because the mind begins treating every uncertainty like a threat. The brain replays conversations, imagines future disasters, analyzes mistakes repeatedly, searches endlessly for certainty. But life rarely provides perfect certainty. And because of this, the overthinking mind never fully relaxes. Some people even become afraid of sleep itself. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of tomorrow. Afraid of unresolved emotions. And beneath many cases of insomnia, there is often emotional tension left unprocessed. The body becomes exhausted carrying thoughts the mind refuses to release. This is why true rest is not merely physical. It is psychological surrender. But surrender is difficult in a culture obsessed with control. Part 8. The Philosophy of the Night. Night changes human consciousness. Many writers, artists, and philosophers were drawn toward nighttime reflection. Because darkness creates psychological intimacy. The external world becomes quieter. And internal reality becomes clearer. Franz Kafka often wrote during sleepless nights. Many existential thinkers described nighttime as a confrontation with existence itself. And perhaps insomnia reveals something profound about humanity. Humans are not merely rational creatures. They are emotional, fragile, existential beings trying to survive overwhelming consciousness. At night, the masks disappear. The performance stops. And people quietly confront mortality, uncertainty, meaninglessness, and emotional pain. Maybe this is why nighttime thoughts feel so honest. Because darkness removes distraction. Part 9. The modern mind is exhausted. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of modern insomnia is that society normalizes exhaustion. People joke about sleep deprivation, celebrate overwork, remain constantly connected. And slowly, chronic mental fatigue becomes normal. But the human mind was never designed for endless stimulation. Humans need silence, rest, emotional processing, boredom, and stillness. Without these things, consciousness becomes fragmented. And perhaps this explains why so many people feel emotionally numb today. Not because they lack emotion, but because their nervous systems are overwhelmed. Modern life bombards the brain continuously. Information never stops. News never stops. Comparison never stops. Algorithms never stop. And eventually, the mind loses its ability to become quiet. Insomnia becomes the symptom of a civilization incapable of resting psychologically. Part 10. What insomnia teaches about humanity. Insomnia reveals something deeply human. Beneath all productivity, all distraction, all entertainment, many people are quietly struggling with themselves. Struggling with thought, with emotion, with existence. And maybe sleeplessness is not merely a medical problem. Maybe it is also philosophical. A reflection of a civilization disconnected from stillness. Disconnected from silence. Disconnected from inner peace. Perhaps the human mind was never meant to absorb this much stimulation. Perhaps consciousness itself becomes fragile under constant pressure. And maybe the modern world fears silence because silence forces confrontation. Confrontation with loneliness. With uncertainty. With mortality. With the self. But perhaps there is also wisdom hidden inside the night. Because sleeplessness reminds humans of something important. That beneath modern identity, beneath social media, beneath productivity, there is still a vulnerable human mind searching for peace. Maybe insomnia is not simply the inability to sleep. Maybe it is the inability of modern consciousness to truly rest. A mind overstimulated by endless information. A nervous system trapped inside permanent alertness. A civilization afraid of silence. And perhaps healing begins not only with sleeping more, but with learning how to exist more quietly. To disconnect. To slow down. To sit peacefully with ourselves again. Because maybe the real exhaustion of modern humanity is not physical, but existential. And perhaps somewhere beyond the noise. Beyond the scrolling. Beyond the endless stimulation. The human mind still remembers what peace feels like.